executive session for discussion of personnel matters. Moved by trustee Bell, second by trustee Jazinski. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brewer? Yes. Trustee Grant? Yes. Trustee Jazinski? Yes. Trustee Todd? Yes. Trustee Williams? Yes. Trustee Bell?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting. First item is Ms. Maggie Jones going to give us a presentation, a funding plan and implementation strategy for the Sauk Trail 223rd Street multi-use path project. It's a mouthful, but that's okay. Thank you so much, Maggie. I'm going to move out the way.
How are the acoustics? Good? Okay. Give me a wave if that changes. So good evening. As the mayor just stated, I'm here tonight to talk with you about the multi-use path project for Sauk Trail and 223rd Street. I'm going to be providing an overview of the project, status update, and also some recommendations on how the village can strategically move forward with this project into the future. Now, the project as it's described in the village's comprehensive plan is that the village is seeking to develop a multi-use path to allow for two-way pedestrian and bicycle use between key destinations. And I don't know about you, but that sentence alone doesn't tell me a lot about what this project is. I'm more of a visual person, a picture person, so I did want to include some images here to better describe what this project hopes to achieve for the community. So here are some example before and after pictures. You can see in the before photo a very narrow sidewalk right directly next to a roadway. And in the after photo, you see a two-way path that accommodates pedestrians, cyclists. There's a nice buffer between that pathway and the road. Here's a similar example. And even in a residential context, you can see that a multi-use path can help promote recreation and healthy living. And finally, here are some images from the village's own comprehensive plan showing how the median along 223rd Street can accommodate a multi-use path like this. And you see also some images of parkway trees, village signage, gateway signage and banners, as well as a bike lane and pedestrian walkway. And what about this project made it a priority in the comprehensive plan, you might be wondering. And there are many, many community benefits to a project like this. It's responding to the community's desire for trails, bikeways, and walking paths. It's a way to safely connect residents between key destinations within the village, and that includes schools, parks, residences, commercial areas, and other major destinations. And lastly, but not least, supporting transit ridership for PACE, bus route 358. It's another opportunity to do that. So where are we now? Here on this aerial map, you can see highlighted in blue the section of the project along 223rd Street, which has been funded for Phase 1 engineering through the Cook County Invest in Cook grant program. And in yellow, you see the western portion of the project, which has been funded for Phase 1 engineering through the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, which is a federal transportation investment program. And so you also see here on the map in orange, if you can, it's just highlighting the PACE bus route, showing some good synergy there and alignment. And so both segments of this project are now currently funded for the first phase. This is usually the step after you've got the idea, the concept in mind. That phase one engineering is going to allow some technical expertise and engineering expertise to think through the actual planning for it and coming up, importantly, with cost estimates for future phases of work. So that is where we are currently. And with that in mind, you can see already that there's been great work completed to date, both community visioning around the idea for the project, but also moving forward to receive that grant funding to pursue phase one engineering. I did put together a handful of potential next steps to strategically think about how the village can move forward with this project in a way that's cost effective and timely for the community. And so I'd like to just briefly walk through each of those 5 recommendations for next steps. First is to advocate for one study. You might have noticed in the map, we saw 2 different segments of the project highlighted. They've been funded through 2 different external sources. And really, this is one project. And so I'm explaining here that one consolidated study would allow the process to be more streamlined. The overall product, the final study, would be more cohesive, and it would better position this project for any future funding, whether it be funded together or separately. And I'm happy to share with you all that over the past several months, through conversations with Cook County, they have agreed to consolidate this into one phase one study, and they've also determined in consultation with the village that the county would be the most appropriate lead agency for this. So we've now secured the funding, but now the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways will be the one to actually administer the project. We'll be along, of course, to see the project through and be there for all the meetings, reviewing the deliverables, and being present for every step of it, but we will not have the staff burden of administration for these 2 grants. So I think that's a really big step forward just in the last few months, and obviously even since putting this memo together, we've made some good strides there. So we're on the right track pursuing this as one cohesive project moving forward. Yes?
In that paragraph when you talk about the advocacy part, it has CMAQ.
Yes. The Q, CMAQ, stands for Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program. That's a federal transportation program that's administered, not to make it more confusing, but by CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. We love acronyms, and I apologize for that. Okay. The second recommendation is to continue to pursue external funding for this project. There's a lot of money available for future phases of work, the phase 2 engineering and also construction. That said, it isn't a great use of time to apply to every grant under the sun. That's a lot of effort on the staff here, and so what I've done is a scan to pull out the funding sources that most closely match with this project, most likely to be funded through these fund sources that you see in the table. This is both state, local, and regional fund sources like IDOT, CMAP, Cook County, and South Suburban Mayors and Managers, as well as IDNR. So I did want to highlight through this process what sort of fund sources are the best match for this process, for this project. And at the same time, highlighting what the typical schedule looks like in a year so that it can be on our staff and officials' radar. That typically in January, you see a notice for funding. The opportunity is advertised. Staff and officials will take a few months to prepare applications. Once you hit that deadline, there might be some inquiries from the program administrator that staff would need to respond to, making any clarifications, or sometimes there's an interview process. Then by the summer, there's usually an announcement of which projects are being funded, at which step the municipality is Up to that, looking to put an IGA together, developing a request for qualifications for a contractor, and then moving on to select that contractor, execute the agreements, and begin the project work. So in the first phase, which I've described as already being funded, I'm so happy to say that Cook County is going to take care of leading a lot of those activities. And so again, we'll be there to be a partner in that and follow the whole process, but as you can imagine, it's quite time consuming for staff to undertake all of these responsibilities. So that's good news for our first phase, but in any future phases, we should consider that there is a big staff commitment that's associated with each of these grants. And this is a specific recommendation getting just at that point. So there's two sides of the coin. You want to get the external funding, you want to get the grant, but you need to recognize that it is a bit of staff time to administer the grant and really shepherd the project through and get it done. So I'm recommending that we think through the village's end, who might be the appropriate project manager for any grants for this project or generally. Because these are requirements for many different types of grants, not just transportation related. At the moment, I'm serving in that kind of staff liaison role, but when we think about transitioning after next year, whether it's the village administrator, the director of community and economic development, or another staff person, we'll want to think about how to best transfer those responsibilities. And I'm happy and looking forward to bringing some trainings and getting whoever that is, or maybe it's multiple people, up to speed on what these programs entail and some of the details around applying for and executing some of these grants. But this is an important step that I don't want to get lost in the shuffle. In the memo in your packets this week, I also included a snapshot for each project phase, everything from planning to phase 1 engineering, phase 2 engineering, construction, as well as ongoing operations and maintenance. I wanted to highlight specifically what the village's responsibilities are throughout each of those stages of the project. And I think that will also help illustrate what sort of staff commitment might be needed in order to shepherd a project through using some external fund sources. So it's always important to keep your finance director up to speed on where you are during the budgeting cycle. So it would be important moving forward that village staff keep the director of finance and others in the loop on any corresponding project costs. Some of those grants that are listed as potential funders for future phases of work, they many a time include a local match, and so that's something you don't want to come up at the last minute and surprise anybody. Those are the types of associated costs to these projects that are important to keep top of mind, and particularly keep those communication lines open throughout all the departments really within the village, but particularly the finance department. And lastly, when these projects are moving ahead, there's a lot of internal coordination between staff, officials, the consultants, the contractors, and I wanted to include this recommendation to not lose sight of all the other stakeholders that should really be informed as the project moves ahead. Particularly with this multi-use path project, I think the residents, those staff at the schools, folks who are regularly at the churches along the route, they should really all be in the know and up to speed at each stage of this process. And so also in the memo that I've shared, there's some suggested stakeholder lists, both from the program administrative side to the local schools and other stakeholders that it's just a good idea to keep everybody in the know, and that particularly in the early stages of a project, getting their input throughout is a way to ensure that the final product, whatever's really physically built, most closely matches what those local needs are. So this is just a good practice, which I'm sure everybody knows, but important not to lose sight of. So with that, I'm not asking the board to take any action, but I wanted to bring this up as a topic for discussion and to ask if there are any questions or comments. I'd be happy to answer those now. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. But could you kind of let the board know in estimated costs, because we get ready to do our budget. We kind of need to know, put that in there. Because I'm looking at a lot of it's going to be Cook County, that's the reason why they spearheaded it. But I'm sure there's going to be some good. And we need to know, and also, as you stated, I think you only have, 6 months left or so?
1 year.
We have 1 year?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, good, I don't want to worry about that part. But, yeah, we need to kind of know what we need, don't come at the last minute, how much, village would, be responsible for, because all that, and we already know money hinges on a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So we need to be able to put that in the budget. First of all, we need to find out how much it is, so we can continue to just keep moving forward. And as stated before, the county is going to, and underwrite a lot of this and help us with that. So, but I'm sure this is going to cost us something.
Absolutely. At the moment, the cost is really just about making sure staff is available to be a partner with Cook County as they move forward with the Phase 1 engineering study. I would estimate that study might take, we're just getting underway now with the final agreements, and so that study might take us until next year. So I would recommend that we keep this on our radar, but for this year, I don't anticipate that there would be any major financial commitment from the village. When it comes to thinking about Phase 2 of this, so we'd be looking at applying for funding for the following year. I think, and this is all about good communication, just making sure that when the budget is being put together that we check in to see where this and any other major capital projects, what the status is of each of those. Because luckily, once this Phase 1 study is done, we will have cost estimates for the rest of the project. And so that will help us estimate what the local match might be if we're lucky enough to get some more external funding to support this. So thank you for the question, Mayor. And yeah, like I said, it's really just about having the staff time right now to be a good partner. And then I would say for next year, then there might be some more conversations to have about any potential local match needs. And we're in the process now of putting some applications together for future phases. And we would find out later this year, but that next phase would not be underway until 2021.
And then I think I saw something in here that says, I think the county will be responsible for the lighting. That would be great going down Sauk Trail.
That's right, yeah, we've talked a lot about this, that, the physical infrastructure is really important, but getting safety lighting, appropriate lighting, as well as taking advantage of the opportunities for public art, some community branding, for getting the village's logo and name out there, really making sure that residents have a sense of pride around this project is important, and there's lots of other elements besides the pavement that will contribute to that. And so those will definitely be conversations moving forward of who is responsible for the lighting, the other things beyond the pavement itself. And so we'll be discussing that as we move forward with this phase.
Anybody else have a question?
That project is 2 different times, right? It goes down Sauk Trail and State.
I guess we're not using much together then, huh?
The project is going to start in Stager, as you were right. It's going to go down Cottage Grove to Sauk Trail, and then east on Sauk Trail to Cornell, south on Cornell to 223rd Street, 223rd Street, all the way to the 4th Missouri.
Yeah, so you can think of 2 bookends for this project. On the west side, Blue Trail High School being the far end, and then the Forest Preserve on the east extent. And a continuous, safe, community-driven plan and project all the way in between. Okay. Thanks so much for the opportunity to update you on the status of this project and also to provide this kind of refresher on the comprehensive plan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, will be presented by interim finance director, Mr. Anthony Finch. He has like 4 different items he wants to bring to the board. Is it on?
It's on. Thank you, Mayor, Board, and Clerk. Let me see. What I'm gonna pass out is the budget to actual as of January 2020. And then we can go over that, please. Let's take one, pass it down. I'm trying to just, it's as of January. Does everybody have one? Yes. Most of them should be two-sided. This budget is, budget actual is as of, for the most part, December, which is 75% of the year-to-date budget. Some of the revenue numbers in here is as of January, because they get posted every day, get updated every day. So that's why it's as of January, as far as revenue, with some of the expenses also being in the budget. But the analysis is based on 75% of our budget to actual numbers. But I did not give you guys, and I will send it later on this week, as we go through the budget, there's some items that have gone over 75% of the budget to date. And then that way you guys can see the detail of the vendors and mix up those budget items. So the very first page is the general fund, and you see it has to deal with property taxes. Property taxes are not posted year to date because that comes out of the amalgamated bank account. And at this point, we haven't gotten to that process of posting it. However, we can always get that number off the Cook County website as far as what amount of property taxes we actually have year to date. But mainly, this review is going to be over the expenses that we have incurred so far. So let's turn to the second page, and for those that have double-sided, it's going to be on the back of it. The second page deals with the revenue, the license and permanent revenue. I'm not going to go through line by line, but if you see at the bottom right-hand corner, 83.19%. Basically what that is saying, we have achieved so far 83% of the budget revenue for these particular line items. So for instance, if you used to look at, let's say, and I don't get more detail behind it. If you look at vehicle license, we budgeted $82,000. At this point in time, we've already collected $67,000. Now, based on how Sauk really rolled with the vehicle license, that might be all that we get for the next 3 months. So when you're looking at these numbers, you gotta take into account where we at in the fiscal year. So, for instance, if we're not getting more vehicle license between now and the end of April, then this number, we're not gonna achieve $82,000. Does that make sense? Okay. But in total, we have achieved 83% of our projected $286,000 in revenue for license and permits. Any questions on that page? Okay. The next page is fees and services. Again, take your eye to the bottom right-hand corner. We have achieved so far just 58% of our projected revenue today. One of the items is not on here that got to be posted. If you look at the cable TV franchise fee, sometimes the checks are sent to us and it's posted at the front window. Most of the checks are directly deposited to our main bank account. But that being the case, that money is not posted, I think up to maybe August. So that's why that number's off a little bit. But again, that's a number, I think we get like 20,000 roughly every quarter. But I just want to show you why the cable TV is less than 50% of what we projected. The other thing here that I might have to look into, and this is one of the detailed reports you get, you look toward the bottom, you have program receipts for $38,200. You see there's nothing budget for that, so I need the detail to find out what makes up program receipts. Because what I'm trying to do is make sure as different revenue items come in, they are posted to the appropriate line item, not into like a miscellaneous account. So we want- I have no idea what that is. No, not program receipts, it could be any, one big check. But you'll have that information this week. I tried to print it out, but I had problems tonight, but no excuses. So you turn the page over. The next one is on grants. Didn't have too much budget for that, but we did get a $23,000 police grant, so that's where you see that money is in there. Okay, so that's fine. The $3,000 that you see at the bottom on the grants is the $3,000 that we got back from Roberts Engineer that related to the parks and grant that we got years ago. Okay, next page. The next page is transfer. This right here doesn't have any activity. I do keep a list of transfers that's done after each account's payable. I can't say as of today, we haven't transferred any money, and you'll see that later on in this analysis. We haven't transferred any money out of the water fund for any operational expenses. Out of the water or the water sewer fund to pay for operational expenses. But these numbers will change once I start posting them. Again, if you go down to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see 95.9% of the anticipated revenue for miscellaneous. The bulk of that, if you look in the middle, $151,553. The bulk of that is a check that we got from Cook County for that for $122,000 for the project that we have to eventually pay that out. So it's not extra money. Yeah, so on the refund and reimbursement, okay? We turn to the next page, we go to, basically now we get to the expenses. The first expense is going to be administration. Now, the second part of administration page, let's go to that one, this will be page 8. It's going to say 79.9% is what we spent compared to our budget. It's page 8 of the administration page. Everyone see that? Okay. So now we turn back to the first page, so I'm going to show you why that's important. If you take your finger in the very right-hand corner of the page and you go straight down, at this point, since we're 75% into our budget, all expenses should be under 75% or less. So when you go down, immediately, if you look at the fifth one from the top, 392%, that's what we talked about before. What that is, that fringe benefit, that's Blue Cross Blue Shield, all being put under the administration, whereas in the past, they broke it up by various departments. We have not done that yet, because I haven't given the payroll person, AP person, the particular allocation per department. So conversely, as we get to like the police department and fire department, you'll see that they're not going to have a line item of expenses under fringe benefits other. So now if you go down, you see 186.05% for office supplies. That's something you guys will also get. As for the detail, I can tell you right now, most of that is Amazon and Ed's consulting supplies that we purchased throughout this last several months. But you have the detail of each invoice, what makes up that total of $17,860. So before we go any further to the next department, is there any questions on here that you see in the percentages over 75% that you definitely want to ask about, even those that may not be over 75%? Oh, that's a big one.
There's a telephone there, 272%.
Yeah, we're working on that. Myself and one of the trustees is working on that to eventually cancel one of those what's called telephone contracts. So we do have multi-contracts. Actually, I just emailed one of the department heads today because they have what they call POTS lines, which are lines that were used several years ago, but now everybody's going more or less with voice over IP. So I got to get confirmation that we can cancel those lines before we can cancel. And doing that, that's probably save us $45,000 a month. but that would be something we look into. A month.
45,000.
45,000.
I thought I heard 45,000.
No, 4 to 5. Not 45. But yeah,
Gotcha.
4,000 times 12, that's 48,000, so yeah.
Other rent leases, what else?
Other than that, I do not know what that expense is, but that's when, all the ones that definitely over 75%, you'll have a detailed report to look at it, and then via email, have you want to communicate with me to ask questions, we have those too. Because as we get ready for the next budget, we gotta make sure that either this budget, we under budget what the expense is gonna be, or they just overspent and didn't manage their budget throughout the year. So one of those two decisions got to be made. Either we add more money to it, or it's a one-time anomaly that happened. Like you'll see in some of these budgets, it's already 100%. But then I can tell you that bill is already been paid. There's nothing else in our line item for the rest of the year. So that's the administration side.
I had a question.
Yes.
You mentioned the office supplies. I thought we were going to be a little firmer on that, on all departments. How did we already go over 186%? You said you're going to identify which departments are involved in that?
This office supply is just strictly for administration.
So it's happening at the administration level. We need to really invest. Whose responsibility is to make sure those office supplies don't exceed this amount?
But right now, the young lady that was handling it is along with us. So I couldn't even tell you who's managing the supply.
This needs to be really, really monitored. There's no reason for it to be that high.
So we'll have that this week as well.
Did you say that it was office supplies and Edge, or just office supplies?
Office, it's Amazon and Edge Consulting.
Oh, so it's two different.
It's two different vendors, yes, that makes up the store.
You're gonna break it down.
Yes, you'll see the whole detail each month of activity. If you turn over, and I just want to bring this to your attention now, because we're going to discuss it in the next budget. We're still on administration. If you see in the middle where it says Cook County tax refund, that 50,000, we have not paid it. We're going to pay it before the end of the fiscal year, but just FYI, we're going to need another 65,000 next fiscal year. Because as of today, I confirmed we owe almost 115,000 refund back to the county from years ago when they gave us all the payments.
Right.
So that will be in there.
But I thought we had to pay it, did we pay
Yeah.
25, did we skip a
We
month?
have, it was, originally it was like $300,000, so we paid, I think the last time we made it, total payment was like $75,000.
Oh, so we skipped the pay.
Yes.
Oh,
So just, so that should be coming probably mid-February, mid-April, for 50,000. The next one is, I'm sorry,
Is
go ahead.
that the balance of it?
No,
Or
this-
yeah,
This
what's
all,
the
the balance is 115,000,
115?
but we budget 50,000 this year.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, the next page is elected official. You guys kind of, I guess, pat yourself on the back, because if you look at the bottom, we've only spent 56% of our allocated budget, which is definitely below the 75%. Only line item that I have to look into is the one for Fire and Police Commission. I need to see what makes that up. And then also publication and membership, what makes up that item. So those two, you'll have a detailed report of those two line items.
You got up here elected officials, 63.
I thought they had like,
I did, I'm sorry, part-time, employee wage is 63.3. You said we should be up to what, 56, so we
No,
over?
No, you should be under 75 or less.
Under 75, okay.
The next one is public grounds and building. This department right now is like right on the cuff. So this is more of a conversation with department heads to see what's projected for the next 3 months, because this is at 78.3% of budget. Again, some of these items that I gotta look into in more detail is the facility, maybe, I don't know what that is. Utility equipment, I think this where it says reserve for future expenditure, I think that's in the wrong line item, which is why going forward it's so imperative that when the department heads get their budget, they have a line item that matches to the budget, not something that we use in the past. So So I'm gonna find out what that is, and that more likely will be changed from that line item to another line item. So when you see this again and it goes to zero, it should be somewhere in the other line items. Same thing with utilities, have an idea what that is. What else? The children equipment, I'm looking to that. We spent a lot more than was allocated for it, so that might be a one-time purchase. Again, in your overall of the budget, we're within the budget number. That's the main thing. So even if we over one line item, we have money in other, like if you look at bill repair and maintenance, there's $2,000 in that line item, but we have unused $300. So if that's the case, then we move that $2,000 to another line item, as long as we don't go over $122,000 for the year. Any questions? The next one is the police department. Their percentage is on the second page. That's at 51.23%, which is good. However, and again, that's 51% of the amount that we approve for them to spend. However, if you look at various line items, you see some like office supplies, for instance. The percentage is high, but the budget was 1,000. We spent 2,000. So those are, even though the percentage is humongous, we still gonna break down and find out what the detail is within those expenditures. Any question on that department?
You have 89.3, is that
Which line item?
uniform,
Where?
uniform
Yes,
clothing?
yes. And that might be all that he spent for the year. Because I don't think there's any more officers. No, I take that back. We got one more that I think just came on our accounts payable next week to be paid. But that might be it for the year. So he might just come to the 22,000. But then that's what I was saying, based on the department head knowing their budget, he might hit 22,000 next month and be done for the rest of the year. And then we'll go over his budget. So that's a question that myself and the department head would ask, how much of this 22,000 are you still going to spend for the rest of the year?
Also on the police, you have 124, 124.05, that was that professional development.
Yes.
You know, I know they need the training, but, you know, that's way past the right?
And that be the detail that we have. And like I said, when I send you the detail, if those are questions that I can't answer directly, I ask the department head, and then we can drill down into like why. And if it's something that is justifiable, like we have to go to this training, whatever, and we calculate what the budget should be, then we take some money from other line items and put it in there and get that appropriate line item. Any other questions on that one? Okay. Community development, this one is kind of odd for me because you see we don't have no budget for it, but they have some expenses. So I'm gonna drill down to these and find out where these expenses come from. And it can be just as simple as, in the past, we always use this particular line item and not put them in another department. So you all would have the detail behind these two dollar amounts, even though they are small, because there's no budget for it. The next page is fire. This is just how the report prints out. And then you go to ESDA. ESDA, again, they subtract themselves from the back. They haven't really spent anything. They only have 11% of their year-to-date budget. None of their stuff is even close to the normal budget. Okay. The next page is streets. This is the one that I was referencing earlier, that when you look at the percentage, it's 98.47%. That initially might scare you, but if you look in the middle, we've already spent $40,460, but that's what it was budgeted. So he's at 100% already. Now the other one that I will look into more is vehicle expense. It was expense for, budgeted for $10,200, but we already spent $9,400. So the question is, are we planning on spending more for the next few months, or can we hold that expense off to the next fiscal year? Next page is parks and playground. Again, this one is at 75%. The bulk of that is the Option grant. There's the telephone we budgeted $350. We spent almost $800. It's nominal, but it makes the percentage so high at 226%. So that department is fairly okay as well. Because as you see, there's one, two, roughly 3 categories of the budget that we haven't really touched. Any question on that? The next page, this is something I gotta find out too, why it's in this line item. On the dispatch center, we spent $10,534 for phone lines. And I don't know if that's because the way the phone lines is broken up from in the past, but as you can see, we don't have a budget item for that. So I need to know if that was missed on my part, or if that $10,534 should have been somewhere else. So again, you guys will have a detailed estimate as well. The next page is TIF 3. There's nothing in there, we didn't budget anything for that. The next page that you're on now is actual fire fund page. In the middle, where it says fire 1050, that's the revenue that they did. We didn't budget anything for the 1050 revenue building, but so far they collected $4,200. For both page, let me know. The next page on fire fund, and I'm gonna give you details for these 2 items. You see miscellaneous for $2,320, and refunds and reimbursement for $2,544. Those 2 items, I give you a detail of what makes of those items. Because as you see again, we haven't budgeted for those amounts as well. And it's hard to budget for miscellaneous items. But at least we know what makes of those amounts. Any question? The ambulance, fire ambulance, we don't have that department. The next one on fire and ambulance page, this is their big one. Again, overall, we turn to the second page, they had 63.56% of the budget today. There's several items that are over 75%. Those items, again, you guys will have the detail that makes up those particular line items. As you can see, like, for instance, the loan repayment, that's at 100%. That item is not going to give you guys a detail because it's that one-time year payment that we make to them. Okay? So that's that page. There's a professional services for $2,500 that we expense on fire and ambulance. I'm gonna get a detail of that as well. Again, you see there's no budget for it. And then myself and the accounts payable, we need to reclass it and put in a different line item. But at least we know the detail behind it. Okay. The next page, we already discussed what's on there. Next department is the water fund department. The first part, we see utility fees. That's our revenue, $888,000. As you can see, we only got 62%. So as far as revenue is concerned, we under year-to-date projection. So we got to work on getting that number back up so that we can hit 1.4 million. If you go down to the bottom, you see the 73.94 on the miscellaneous revenue. That pretty much is trending toward target. Any question on that? Those revenue. The next page, the water fund, is the big expense. Again, I'd like to take you to the second page. So far, they have only used 47.11% of the budget to date. However, like the other departments, they have various line items that's over 75%. As with the other departments, I'll be sending you details of these various departments. And then you can see, like, notice one of the trends that I've seen in this budget, most every department has gone over in vehicle expense. So I don't know if we just really miscalculated or is gas pretty cheap. I don't know, maybe they're breaking it down or whatever. Yeah. So those are analysis we have to talk about in the next budget.
What's intergovernmental services?
I don't know.
Intergovernmental services, 233, 34.
That's one of the items you have detail on as well. Just like other contractual services, we budget 5,000, when we spend 31,422 for it. But all these will be detailed.
Because they're not getting long, they're maybe 2 and work equipment, like 90, See at the bottom of the page, yes.
The bulk of that, I can tell you, is that paving machine. So there should be that much more coming in that department.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that line item, sorry. But we do have that as well. And even the one is, capital outlay for 69,000, I have a detail on that one too, but I don't remember what that was. For that one. The next page, your, sewer department fund. Again, the, utility fees is tracking under, is at 588,000, and we budgeted 129,000. So that's off a little. So we gotta look at that revenue going forward, make sure that we are in line with what's actual coming in. Next, the main department is the sewer fund. Again, if you look at the bottom total, right, it's 34% of our year-to-date budget in expense, which is really good. There's very few items on here that has gone over budget. So you guys, again, will have a detail of what makes those items up so that we can do in-depth analysis. Is that something we need to budget for the next fiscal year, or just make sure the department head manages more closely? Any questions on that? Okay. And that concludes the budget analysis. And those are like 62 pages. So you're gonna have a lot, so. Any questions? Okay. Mayor?
Yes, next one will be the 2019 Finance Department pass-through.
Any questions on the tax?
I have a question. So we're gonna get this every 3 months first, the budget first, after, so we get another one tomorrow.
The next one, you will be one, I think,
In February,
because we,
another budget after in February.
yes, because we're gonna start doing the budget in March.
Okay,
And the plan is, once I give you guys the detail behind this, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. Those questions will be fed back to the department head, and they're gonna have to explain, yeah, we went over budget, or no, this was something that we, didn't put in the budget, and we should put in the budget, so we can start an analysis as to why. And then, once we have that information, and we look at the budget actually in February, we have more realistic of where we're gonna be at, year to date, to start preparing for the FY '21 budget.
Mr.
So
Finch,
we're going to get this every 3 months, yes, sir.
you're gonna wait till March to start working on the next budget? We don't wanna do this now?
We can, but before we start in March, we gotta understand what this is. Because if we go off of this, and let's say like vehicle expenses, we just put everybody that went over at that dollar amount, then we could be inflating our budget. Because it could be my engine blew out of the truck. Well, that's a one-time expense. That should not happen again in FY '20. But that's why it's so crucial for the department heads to look at their budget, which I meant, I think 2 weeks ago, and say, this line item is an anomaly, or like for instance, supplies. Some office supplies for administration might need to be 15,000, but they're gonna have to justify to you all why it's 15,000. Or, because it wouldn't be fair for you to say, you know what, put 17,000 in there. They don't need it. Well, that's the conversation we're gonna have. So when we come back and do this in February, we'll have more accurate numbers with the department head saying, no, this line item is too low, this line item is too high, and stuff like that. And then plus, we have a better assessment of the revenue that comes in, because that's the whole key. Like I've said before, if we are not as accurate as possible with our revenue, then we just make it up expense numbers. You can say expenses is $6 million. If we don't get $4 million, then we ain't never pay the bills.
I have a couple of questions, but I'm gonna take them out of order. That's okay. So I want to do the easy ones first. Now, your first question was, why doesn't the finance director have a surety bond? And as I understand it, you do have one. And so I don't know why that was in there, so can you clarify what's going on with that?
Well, that was a question that was proposed to me out of this time last year about having a surety bond. It was not known to the village that I had my own surety bond, and I didn't know why it asked me, but I have it. And I was under the impression in my analysis and research that it was never had before by previous treasurers. So I have mine that I paid for.
Okay, thank you for the answer. My next question is, at the top of the page, it says, where's the money from the Austin grant? Now, I understand we paid that money back, but can you give us an overall overview of what happened to the Austin grant? I understand that the mayor requested that it be sent to state attorneys to find out what's going on with the money. Can you tell us anything about what happened with the,
It's in the minutes, it's in the minutes.
I didn't have anything to do
in the
about it.
minutes? So anyway, can you elaborate on the Austin grant?
When I was asked to look into Austin grant, what it looks like happened is when money came in, it was placed in an account that was not specific to a grant account. When it was placed in that account, the county got commingled with other funds. We did not have a park to get fully developed, so that money was just basically sitting there until the state came back and said, pass this money back. So instead of being separated to have its own bank account, it was added other funds. And then we paid it back a few months ago.
Okay, well, only comment I want to make is that when we got the Austin grant was like in 2016, and those funds were put in a specific line item, and I had been asking for, what's the status for almost a year and a half, but nobody seems to know what happened to the Austin grant. So once, I think about March 18th, that money was transferred out without the board's approval and used. So, as far as I know, it went somewhere and was used, but was not approved by the board to be transferred out.
If it was used, it still was used with the other funds. It's still part of the total of funds that were developed to the village. So even if it wasn't put in account, if it was put in account A, but then moved to account B, the village still had access to account B. So when it came time to pay, we had the money, but the money, in all actuality, probably should have been sent back years ago, not in 2019.
Okay, so once we get a grant like that or something that's not restricted or anything,
Yes.
that's what I thought. Okay,
Let's-
now the tip,
I'm finished, Mr. Mayor.
Can I clarify what you just stated?
No, I'm.
Why not?
asking-
I mean, you may- I'm
talk to
just
the
asking- I'm
Finance
trying to-
director about my questions.
Okay,
and
but
then
I'm
I guess
trying
you
to-
could
you
clarify
asked
things
him,
like
he
how-
wasn't here
I like
when
to
it happened.
clarify.
well,
He
you gave a
wasn't
satisfactory answer.
Pardon me?
I was here, so that's my
No,
answer.
you weren't here when it happened.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can
I'm
we
just-
move on?
No, because I'm trying to get you to understand what happened to the
I-
Osborne grant.
okay.
Why the money was left untouched or whatever. Because what happened was the landscaper that was supposed to do the landscaping of that particular project came back and said he can't do for that amount, which was $75,000. He said, I can't do it for that. I need more money. So he said, well, for that reason, I'm not gonna do anything. We couldn't get anybody else to do it at the time. The mayor couldn't find anybody else to do it. So therefore, all the money that was put into that was supposed to be put to the side because we had to reimburse Cook County back for the money because we didn't use it. So what happened, the money never went anywhere. It was just, it wasn't put in a separate fund. And that right there created a problem because it was put into the black hole again, which is the general fund, and everything in there. If you see it, it's like grabbing money. So that money was grabbed. When it came time to pay it back, we had to, at the time, the board had to try to get money to pay it back, and the state said, because we didn't pay it back on a timely manner, we no longer, for the next 3 years, are eligible to get an Osmond grant because we didn't pay it back on time. So right now, even though other municipalities can get an Osmond grant, we're not able to get that anymore. So the money wasn't, we can call it misappropriated. It went into the general fund at the time, and so when it came time for them to pay, the village didn't have that $105,000 to pay it right back. So therefore, that's when the state said, well, okay, fine, you can pay us in payments, but you won't get any more grants at this particular time because it didn't happen. So it was at the last minute, the landscaper that came back and told Robinson Engineering that, yes, we did bid on this, yes, we said we were gonna do this, but however, we looked over and found out we can't make it happen. And that's where all this stuff happened at. So that's what I'm just trying to say. And this was back in 2000, as you stated, 2016.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Mayor, but the money was moved illegally back to wherever and it was used.
Only way you can say that. It wasn't
The
moved
next
illegally.
question that I have
That's,
is that,
that's really wrong.
the next question that I have is on the first page. It says, what happened to the $250,000 that's in the, in 2018? On here you indicated that the money was used to pay a bond payment and transferred between accounts in previous stated and council meetings.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, yes, a bond was transferred from 2 to 3 or 3 to 2, whatever, to make that bond payment. Now, but we're talking about the $250,000 that was in the water fund 2017, where the mayor indicated himself that the money was taken out to pay a bond. Now, if this happened, the $250,000 that was taken out of the water fund, we should have some kind of paper trail saying where the bond went, what bond was paid off. And I don't have that information related to this $250,000. I'm not talking about the bond payment. I'm talking about the $250,000 that was taken out of the water department to pay the bond.
Well, the 250 out of the water department, that I don't know about.
Never.
The 250 that I do know about was related to the bond payment. And I provided a paper trail to show that it went to be a bond payment from one account, came back from another account, and then that account replaced the original 250 for the payment.
Yeah,
So the 250 from the water transfer that you referred, that I don't know anything about.
And the question is, the next question is, what happened to the police vest grant? You indicated on here that it wasn't finalized and the village lost the funding for that. How much money did we lose?
I don't know the amount of money, but when I looked
How
at
much
it,
did
it didn't say, just the letter came back from New York saying that we didn't do this paperwork, they lost it. When they would get it.
Okay. Now, as you know, I've been looking over the acclimated bank statement, and I only looked at a few, because there's a lot of them, like 32. You know, we talked about how we're gonna streamline that process, but the ones I looked at, all of them had zero balance in it. So how do I tell how much money was transferred or whatever, how much balance is? I haven't looked at all of them, I'll say
In
that.
the amalgamated bank statement, there's like 4 to 5 pages per account. And the way it's set up, the money comes in from property taxes, it goes to, just keep it simple, goes to account 1, 2, 3, 4. When it's time to get ready to pay payments, even if it's not enough money in 1, 2, 3, 4, it goes to another account until it builds up. And then once it builds up, it gets dispersed. So when that transaction takes place, 1, 2, 3, 4 eventually will be zero.
Okay.
Then if it's a 2007 bond, 2008 bond, they have their separate identifying account numbers so that all the monies don't come into one account. It goes into the account related to that particular bond. And in each of those bonds have 2 to 3 different accounts for an audit trail to track money coming in, money coming out, and then money that was added as far as interest. So that's why you see accounts got zero, because at one point in time, that money was transferred somewhere else. But if you take that same account at zero and go backwards, you'll see that money came in and then money went out of that account.
Well, how would we tell if something
It's
was,
up-
we couldn't tell?
No, you can look at the bank statement, like in January, that account zero, go back in December. In December, it should show you money that came in and then when they transferred it out.
No, we only saw a few, so I have to go back and look at, and my last question to you is that, can you give me the line item where the $800,000 reserve is posted? I understand we got $14,000 worth of interest. Can you give me the line number?
It's not and that's what we discussed at the budget. The $800,000 is not a line item in the FY20 budget, but I can show you on the bank statement online, where it's at. It's not in the line item budget, because when you do the budget, you just deal with revenue and expenses for this fiscal year. It's only 1 year at a time. A fiscal budget doesn't add money that you already have in your bank account, so there's no line item for it. You will see it, like once they do the audit would account for it, because when they do their cash verification with the bank, and they send a letter to the bank, and the bank send that letter to the auditors. That's how the auditors confirm that we have that money in the bank.
So we have to wait till we get the auditors,
No,
and
you
then
can-
they'll
you can call
show.
me and I can give you a printout to show you what's online, but it's not in no budget.
Oh, okay, so then, okay, the line item that I'm looking at, that I have, bank statement on, that starts with 605, so I could ask you for the report, you'll tell me everything that happened in that particular line item.
605 bank statement?
Yeah, I mean, the line number.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the budget thing, you
All right.
detailed report of the budget.
That's it, my questions, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, starting with how many fire hydrants are broken. It was determined that at least 67 fire hydrants needed to be fixed, and the money was placed in the fiscal year 20 budget.
Yes,
Has any of this been addressed yet?
not to my, no,
So we have the money in the budget for the 67 hydrants, but they haven't been addressed yet.
correct.
Okay, when do we plan on possibly addressing them?
That's the department head question.
Okay. The next one is the primary issue with the passage of the fiscal year 20 appropriations centered around two personnel issues. I have an issue with that. That was a big issue, but that may have been primary, but several things interfered with the appropriations being passed more timely. And we are all aware of the Osline grant and just basically trying to figure out what we could do with the money that we had. So I just wanted to make an issue with that. Also, why aren't the bank reconciliations done? Is our temporary personnel person no longer here?
This is her last one.
Oh, this is her last week, because it says here that 95% of the accounts are completed.
Yes.
Does that include the current bank? No, that includes what we were behind.
Yes. that
So in the
goes up to
meantime-
4/30/2019.
Okay.
2019.
Because that was our goal, basically, to get through April of 2019.
Yes, so we can get the audit started.
So we still have from April 2019 to the present needs to be completed.
Majority of yes.
But we're not going to use temporary personnel for that. Okay. She has one more week to go, you said.
Yes.
Okay. The ADP coding for IMRF is incorrect and it's extremely hard to reach someone at ADP. However, at last weekly, we have reached out to ADP to correct the error. We hope to have an answer soon. Now, we got W-2s coming out again. Have we corrected that error from last year, and are we going to face the same problem this year?
Have we corrected? No. Have we faced the same problem? Probably so. I sent the email today to probably 6 regional managers, ADP, with my frustration on not being able to get in touch with anybody. The biggest challenge with ADP, which I'm very surprised to be a $1 billion company, there is not a phone number to call somebody. So when you look at ADP, all of their emails, they don't have a phone number. The problem, when we do get somebody, we have to repeat the whole process all over again. Most of ADP customer service is overseas. So to explain our tax laws is very difficult. One of the things that we did discover was, and it's only IMF, so let me rephrase, so let me have a caveat to that. Majority of the employees will have collected W-2s. Very few, probably like 11 or 12 that have IMRF will not have correct W-2s. What happened was ADP set up IMRF. There's a difference between a defined contribution and a defined benefit. ADP set up IMRF as a defined benefit. It's like a 401k. That throws everything off because that implies you paying into your own retirement, whether it's contributions like a pension. We got that fixed for 2019. We have not got somebody confirmed that they have went and fixed it in their system for 2018. And that's where we at. And then in 2019, we have a preview of the W-2s, but as of today, when the AP payroll person looked, it was not right. So it's twofold with IMRF. It's in box 12, but it should be in box 14 on the W-2s.
Well, my opinion of that, I wasn't part of the process to bring ADP in, but I think we need to explore getting ADP out. Because ADP is a large company, I'm sure we're not the only municipality it works, but this is not working for our staff. And I mean, you're talking about taxes here. There's either staff members that are paying money out of taxes that they have to repay at some point, or the reverse, it doesn't matter. Either way, it's incorrect. I'd like to find out how we can get out of ADP. Because I don't think they're working for us.
I did, today ask for a contract, so I will see when their contract expires. But I don't think it will expire right now, in a year. I will have that information to you.
Yeah, because we weren't part of the original process, but this is a very serious issue. And if we are not ready to expire at some point, I'd almost like to explore an avenue to get out of our contract anyway. Because this is 2 years in a row, and this is impacting our staff. The last question I have is, various vendor contracts have been terminated or not terminated or analyzed, and they're rolling over and they're duplicative. Now, you said you were going to bring us some case points of which vendors were paying for the same service, okay? So are you bringing that tonight, or are you bringing that another time?
As Trustee Bill alluded to, we have the telephone. I know, I think we have a couple internet service providers. Yes, I know we need to look at Bud ambulance contract. I think the dispatch center, the contract we need to also revisit. I did revisit the waste disposal contract, but we locked into that for several more years without we can't get out of that one. I even talked to the one of the head people there about how we can restructure that one. And then the other options that I'm going to check to the police chief that maybe look into FirstNet to get cheaper cell phone. Because FirstNet is the company that if all the cell towers go down, they guarantee that their cell phone won't go down like they did in California.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Are the contracts reviewed every yearly? Because I noticed that most of them, well, a couple of them run over.
No, not that I've been here. I can't speak.
The rail and the cleaning contract, and we don't have copies of them, so they automatically are rolled over for the next year or renewed for the next year.
I haven't reviewed them.
No, I'm just saying, shouldn't they be reviewed? I mean, whose responsibility is that to review them?
My opinion would be, those contracts that you need to look at, have the village administrator analyze them and see which one is beneficial to the village, and then from there, those that are, keep them, those that are not, terminate them.
Okay.
Any other questions? The next thing is the status of the audit. What I'm going to give you, because I try to have everyone understand the magnitude of what the finance department goes through and amount of work. What I'm going to give you is just a sample of what the auditors had to do last year. Take one pass down, please. Normally, when you have your stuff in order, as far as your financials, you might have 10 to 15 entries, what the auditors call. Does everybody have one? Okay. Normally, you have about 10 to 15 entries that the auditors call adjusting audit entries. And basically, what those are, when they come in and look at your financials, there might be one or two things that you forgot to post, like you might forgot to post interest on a car loan or some kind of bond payment that you paid, you forgot to post in the system. Unlike stuff with amalgamated, we didn't post. This is just a sample, like I said, it's 4 pages, it's almost 6 pages of audit entries that they did last year. The reason this is important, and I bring it to your attention now, this is where a lot of the waste of money goes. Because when they do these reports, it costs them money to go back and analyze our numbers. So basically, they, by default, become the finance person of the village. Because if it's not right, they're not going to put together numbers and give to the state. So this is just a sample of what they are, what they did last year. Let me pass it down. You actually pass that all the way around, please. Take this and pass it down, and pass this all the way around to the that side. Those are different sheets. What I'm handing you now is what I'm trying to do with the staff that we have in-house to give them a leg up on getting prepared for the audit, so that the auditors, when they do come in April, they won't have to put this together this long. As you can see, with the sheet that I just gave you, I broke it up into two different staff we have, and it's kind of an intensive list, but if we get this stuff done and prepare it before the auditors get here. It helps save the village some money, and plus it helps save the auditors some time and frustration. So, and that's pretty much all I have about the status of the audit.
Do we give these to the different department heads so they can?
No, this is just for the two individuals in the finance. This is just
Okay.
strictly finance related stuff.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that, cause gentleman I spoke with, you guys know, she's not a person, is Miller Cooper, is we gotta make sure we update what is called a fixed asset list. So any new vehicles we have, any vehicles we sold or no longer have, that list gotta be updated. That list is kinda intense, cause like for me, I wouldn't know what vehicles we have or what equipment in the village we no longer use and dispense of. Even though it's not usable, we still got to account for it because we are a government agency and we can't just throw some vehicle or equipment in the garbage. So that's going to be a list that I will pass out to your question to the department and say, go through this, make sure we got, chief, all these police cars. If you don't have squad 2, take it off the list, whatever, or show that it's sold. Those are the questions that they're going to ask for.
You're talking about all these vehicles. And Public Works has something they leave to the side, like there's 2 or 3 of them sitting over there with bad engines and stuff.
All those need to be accounted for.
Just because we own them.
Yep, because you own, yes. Because what happens,
It's not because we don't use it.
at a point in time, they was accounted for. So down the road, if somebody come and say, well, what was that 1980 car you had? And you say, oh no. Well, if you didn't sell it and have record of it, you got to be accounted for it. Because again, it's taxpayer money that you just gave away. So those are the things that make this list so long when they go in and do the detailed analysis behind the scenes. And for the most part, to be honest with you, only finance people know about or be concerned about, because this goes into your audit. You'll see a line that says depreciation of equipment. That's what those fixed asset is. Like this building, it's paid off, but this building got to be accounted for. What's the value? The useful life and all that kind of stuff. Any other questions?
Do we get a detailed, I'm sorry, will it be a detailed ledger concerning tips 2, 3, and 4, what has been done over the last year? I know you say it's in the bank statement, but since Civics is having a problem getting that information out there, what can we do or?
Right now, to answer your question for the detail for TIFs, it's not a civic issue. It's really a manpower issue.
Okay.
We, myself and the temporary worker, have not sat down, as you found out last week.
Yeah.
For one, amalgamated, and that's why I want you guys to really understand the magnitude of the finance department. And I said that several months ago, it's more complex than 1 + 1 = 2. Amalgamated, to your point about being a zero account, you have to post and track every single thing. So one statement might take you several hours, if not days, to put it in correctly and then make sure you got it in correctly. So we have not posted amalgamated to get to TIF 1, 2, and 3. But it has to be done before the auditors come here. Because what they're gonna do, they're gonna print out, like I gave y'all the budget, they're gonna print out what's called a trial balance, and they're gonna say, okay, TIF 1 got you guys say it got $500,000. They're not gonna take my word for it, none of y'all word for it. You're gonna call them aggregated, you're gonna say, put it in writing on your letterhead, tell me at this point in time, how much you have in the bank. And then that's how they compare what we say compared to what them aggregates. But to answer your question, no, we have not manually typed those numbers in there.
We're gonna do it before the audit?
Yes, it'll be done
Okay.
for the audit, yes.
Great.
So that probably is a Saturday project, so we won't be distracted.
Great.
So what type of internal process do we have for internal auditing process? I mean, can we catch some of these before this is audited?
That's what this
I
list is.
know what you said, that list is supposed to catch those, that's what you're mainly working
Yes.
on. This one here said that Civic actually automatically balanced by posting to cash allocation accounts. Is that list gonna stop something like that when Civic actually did it? So will they see
Yeah,
that?
yes and no. One of the things that we found in postal bank statements was, and it's scary, so I'll tell you how it actually. When people pay the front window, that money goes into the water fund. It's registered, so when I print out the general ledger, you see the water fund. However, when it was coming to window, it did not hit the water revenue line item. It went to, but that statement's alluding to, we went to what's called a past clearing account, basically a holding account. If you did not know, which I didn't know, that it was in this holding account, and you look at, you say, well, we did the budget, and the revenue account is 845, and I pull up 845 for the year, it is said 0. But we knew people are paying for the last 8 months, water bills. It was in this holding account. That's what he's referring to. For whatever reason, that link was never done. We linked that, I want to say probably maybe October, November, to make sure it's linked. So we're gonna have some of those problems when the auditors come to go through the cash clearing account, say, all this money that's here, where should it be? Some should be the water, some should be the garbage, some should be the utility. So that's the biggest challenge. So whatever was set up, it wasn't set up to map correctly.
Thank you.
So when we have that billing usage report, have you ever seen one of those?
Yep.
Okay, and it specifically says like water, garbage,
Sewer.
utility, and sewer, and that's not being done, that's what you said?
No,
That part has been
that
done?
report tells you what came in.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying, if you go back to the budget thing, there's a line item that I gave you guys. There's a line item that says water revenue. At a point in time, that money on that report wasn't going to the water revenue line item. And the only way it got recorded was when the auditors
Came back.
took it from here and put it over in a new account, put it into the right account. Any other questions? IMRF. IMRF for part-time employees. We did talk to IMRF, and actually, I had IMRF doing an audit. They are in the process of finalizing the audit, but they can't finalize until I get them collected W-2s for 2018. But most of it is done. According to IMRF, if a part-time worker is projected to work 1,000 hours in a fiscal year, in a year, they entitled to IMRF from day one. That's the challenge. That's the challenge we're running into. You're gonna, that's like 83, it used to be, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think it was 600 first, and they bumped it up. Yeah, it's 1,000 hours. So that's roughly 83 hours a month that they can work. If they project to work 83 hours a month, then they get IMRF.
So the only way to avoid paying, and we only have how many employees does this came to?
For part-time,
For part-timers?
just 2.
Two? Okay. So the only way to avoid that is to add additional part-time employment for those 2 positions?
So make them full-time, yes.
Or, because I don't know what they were originally told when they were hired, but we've never paid IMRF for part-time employees in the past.
That's
But we've already exceeded that threshold for this.
Oh, yeah.
So this is
But
something
it's
that
not
we need to
new, yes.
discuss at the budget time. If we want to add personnel, part-time personnel, to not pay the IMRF, or to pay the IMRF to the 2 employees. So it's something we have to keep on the radar.
And we gotta make sure we talk about it, because what we don't need is, we don't pay them IMRF, and then they work 1,000 hours, and then you penalize, and now you're paying more. You're paying the IMRF, you're paying their portion, but you're forcing them to pay their portion, and then the penalties.
So it's a decision that we have to make if we're going to add additional staff or if we're going to continue to pay IMRF.
Yep,
Okay, because this year it's already exceeded.
yes.
I just want to say thank you for all this detail, because it's a lot to absorb, but it's good to have. And we'll be looking it
And
over.
the last thing I do want to comment on, the retro pay. There was a major miscommunication with the retro pay. I was under the impression we had to the end of this month to get retro pay done. However, we're still working on it. My biggest concern was because we went back 2 full years. Some officers was getting, received like step increase or anniversary increase. So I wanted to make sure that, one, we got all their hours corrected. So when I meet with them one-on-one, I will have a sheet that shows exactly how many hours they work. So if they dispute it, we can go in the system and find out that they actually work those many hours. So that was one step one. The second step was, again, let's keep the numbers simple. Let's say it went from $9 to $10. Well, if I give them a 2% based off $9, that's still underpaying them, because the 2% should be off for $10, not the $9. So we're breaking it up where every bump that they get, it shows like we was at $9 for these 6 months, then this 6 months went to $10, and then 5/1/19 you should went to another raise. So it's more detailed than just say there's a check and nobody knows what makes up that check total. Myself, business administrator, the chief, and the particular patrolman will sign off on it. So once it's done, then everybody 100% comfortable with the numbers. But that should be, it will be done before the end of this month. because we got more so done. Only ones we don't have is the one that got different movement throughout the year. And the last I see, I know she was supposed to be on the Chief White, the police pension, I will be putting police and fire pension, I will be putting that on the accounts payable list mid-February. Because by then I think we'll be okay financially. And I've already informed the pension board of that as well, from 2 weeks ago when I met with them. Any other questions? Okay, can I get you guys a budget this week? So, yeah, just email me your comments, and then I can just dig deep into it. But yeah, February will be a big month to start working on our budget. Thank you.
Okay, Chief White?
Find out that edge grade, yeah.
Good evening.
Okay, so, I've been speaking with the police and fire board, been talking back and forth with them in reference to the lateral ordinance, and I had some correspondence. You can?
All right. That's better? All right, here we go. Okay, so there was some correspondence between myself and Mike McGrath. And I think what happened, something got lost in translation because there is a portion of the ordinance that is procedural. They were looking for the procedure to actually come and be drafted by the police and fire board themselves. And so this will give them the opportunity to, with restriction, because that's another issue that we wanted to make sure we stayed within the state guidelines because we're not a home rule town. And so there will be at least one or two amendments to be done, but we want to make it the last time it gets amended. So we want to, I will be meeting with them, and I will be submitting the final amendments to it. In the meantime, we just keep the ball rolling. We're going through, trying to stay on track, what was discussed in executive session, so that we are on track for this summer.
We don't need to rescind this ordinance then?
I don't believe so.
That's gonna modify.
Nothing that I've been told says that we need to rescind it. But I mean, we can always contact Mr. McGrath and see if they want to rescind the entire thing.
I believe that needs to be rescinded. I spoke with the attorney for the police and fire commissioner, or the commission, and this ordinance is not correct. And I think what was disturbing about the ordinance was that I would understand that the police and fire commission, first of all, never saw it until after it was already done. And it never came before the ordinance review because we would have looked at it. According to what I understand, this is not per state statute. Because as you stated, we're not home ruled. Personally, I think it should be rescinded and redone. You said you're going to be, are you meeting with the Police and Fire Commission?
Yeah, I'm meeting with them because they're meeting again this week, I believe. But they're going to meet more than that so we can get it done because they have to consult with their attorney. I think, again, part of what was kind of lost in translation was I was only in correspondence with the village attorney. And so because they have their own separate attorney with their own separate issues. So
I personally think it should be rescinded and instead of trying to amend it.
Okay.
I mean, only because now that it was voted on and passed, I really think I personally think it should be rescinded. And then if you're gonna come up with another ordinance, we get to go with that. But that's personally me.
Okay, okay, so, and just so we're all clear at the same table. The objective is to get where we need to go. I'm not here to gum up the works or kick it around as, oh, well, no, we have to. No, what I'm here for is, if you want to rescind it. However we get there, we get there. But we're trying to stay on track so that the safety of the public, the safety of the officers that work here, and the safety, of course, of the citizens is foremost. So however we get there, you know, if that means it's rescinded, we rescind it. Again, I'll be meeting with, I'll be in contact with the village attorney, as well as discussing the procedures with the police and fire board before it gets resubmitted. And to that degree, and just so we're all on the same page, because again, we don't want to go up the words, once the police and fire board submits what they submit, do you want it to go before the ordinance review board?
I think it should. I think that it should, but what I would do, and what I would have done is if it had come before the ordinance review, I would have had somebody from police and fire board review it as well. Because I received a call to say they never even knew about this, which was kind of disturbing, that this ordinance was done.
No,
And I'm just
they,
going by
they,
what I
knew,
was told.
they knew about the ordinance. They knew that we were drafting it. What they didn't know was the context of which the reason for these types of ordinances. Again, there is a difference between a home rule town and a non-home rule town.
Correct.
Which is why one of the revisions, and it's something as simple as 1 to 2 years, you know, as far as the qualifications. There are certain things that, as a home rule town, the police and fire board, if they decide, doesn't play a role at all.
Right.
In this case, and I actually like the fact that the police and fire board does play a role, but it also falls in line with the state statute. But I don't believe that this was a gross enough deviance from that. However, if we want to rescind it, let's rescind it, and then we'll just pick up where we left off and just get back on track.
Yeah, because this is strictly for lateral. So that the residents understand it's for lateral. So that's my personal opinion. I think maybe you talk to Mike McGrath as to what we need to do with this ordinance.
Well, it goes off the will of the board. If the will of the board wants to pull it, let's pull it, and then we'll resubmit the entire thing.
Because from what I understand, it wasn't per state statute, this is what I'm understanding. So we want to make sure that it's correct.
Right.
But personally, I think it should be rescinded. That's my personal opinion.
I agree, because at this way, there will be no officers hired under the lateral. So, right, so we'll just go ahead and know that we're going to rescind it if we all agree, and resubmit it as, not instead of an amendment, it'll be just be a whole ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want this on next week's agenda to have this particular ordinance rescinded?
Yes.
That has to be voted on. Okay. Okay, so then we'll put that on rescinded, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is trustee Roger Graham on finance policy and procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So before you is a copy of the document that was drafted. By no means am I asking for this to be on the agenda for next week. We voted on it. It's more so let's have a it's something that could be amended, talk about questions asked, answer it back and forth a little bit. I don't want to go through the whole thing tonight as it is 60 pages, 56 or 27 pages, but I would say we have some major questions we can ask them now, but if you have like a lot of questions or even 10 to 15, just email me, and I can, email them back to you, because I don't think that we need to sit here and go through every single question at 9:30. But so if you have some major questions, we can talk about that now. If you have some smaller questions, send them to me. I'll try by Friday. I'll try to get back to you. Then I hope to have this back on the agenda again in 2 weeks, so that we can discuss those questions that you had. But it pretty much kind of gives you everything that you need. A lot of this, I'm saying, some things in here does not apply to us because it's just not there yet. But I wanted to include it anyway, so because in case that we get there one day. But it kind of goes over everything from, when do we start the budget process? Like, for example, I think it says we should start it around January. It has things about employees when they pay, how they pay tolls, petty cash, when you travel out of state, how to get reimbursed. So it's very detailed. So I think that if you have a question, most likely it's probably in here somewhere. You just have to look for it a little bit. But, so I'll take any questions, major questions now. If not, you can just email me and then I'll get back to you by Friday.
Can I ask where you got this? You didn't obviously write this document, so where did you get this from?
No, so a lot of this, I'm not a big fan of, creating, so I encompass from a lot of different other municipalities, kind of all put it all together in the same format, and just that's presented this way.
Any particular one municipality, or you took a little bit from here, a little bit?
A little bit from here, like we can.
Passionate to put this for us.
Absolutely.
Trustee Grant, now this particular document, I guess, was presented to us, back in 2017 or 2018.
To the previous board.
And, well, somewhere like that, and it's been, you got a lot more pages from now. But my three major concerns about is that on page 1, it addresses the statute for 5-8, 2-9, 1-10. Now, we are not home rule, and this particular finance policy and procedure does not fall in line with state statutes. Now, it's my understanding that all throughout this document, you refer to the mayor, finance director, village manager, and it actually, in my opinion, is taking the authority away from the village trustee to hold the purse string. Now, in this particular statute, in reference, it says majority of vote of the corporate authority. That cannot be given away by trustees. Now, it's my opinion that as you go through this document, it says the village. Who is the village? It should be village officials. It just says the village. Who is that? And also you reference the budget officer. Who is that? I would ask that the attorney take a look at that Illinois state statute, because I don't believe that that statute is germane to the mayor and the village administrator and the finance director. As I understand it, the trustees are supposed to hold purse strings. That's what we were elected to do. But as you look through this document, it says everything that says the mayor and the village administrator has to do this or do that or whatever. That's not the way I understand that things are supposed to be going. But I would like opinion from the attorney and find out what's this statute pertaining to, because if I'm not mistaken, this is not supposed to be in reference to the mayor.
Okay,
That's my opinion. So
okay,
I have a lot of little questions, but those are the three major ones, and the statute does not, is not in line with what I understand.
Okay, so I just want to clear up a few things for you. So I'm trying to remember all your questions. The budget officer, we don't have a budget officer per se, so that word can be synonymous with finance director. That's
Okay.
pretty much who will do that, so I can make that change. I can make that change for you. In regards to the state statute number that's listed here, it should be the same number. So every year, as you know, the village passes appropriations. and that's by per state statute. This should be the same state statute number that says that. Doesn't say anything about the home rule or the mayor, the village administrator makes up the budget. Nothing, I want to say, repeat this, nothing changes in regards to the trustees watching the money. However, what this does is, it just puts policies in place so that there are more controls of what's going on. So like, for a quick example, if you look at page 3, under option C, it says budget process. Okay, it's saying the village of Sauk Village will adopt the budget system, yada, yada, yada. Then it says, okay, step 1, the plan. The strategic plan put forth by the mayor, the village board, the village administrator, and finance director will come together and come up with a plan for the next budget cycle. That's all that's saying. So there's nothing in here that's taking anything away from the trustees or the corporate authorities. However, we are holding people accountable, such as the village administrator, such as the finance director, to make sure that these things are followed. And you also said something about you mentioned something, so apologize, I forgot what you said, you said a lot. But yeah, so, I mean, if you have any questions, so who's the village, sorry.
Right, yeah.
The village of Sauk Village, like, that's us, like, what do you see,
So it's the phrase to be village officials and not just
no.
village?
So, no, what is it like, for example, back to page 3, what's it under?
Page 3?
Yeah, so for example, page 3, letter B, budget principle. Number 1, it says the village budget. Like, that's not an official, that's the village of Sauk Village. So anytime you see just the word village, that's the village of Sauk Village. It's not a person, it's us, the municipality, if that makes sense to you.
Well, it should be spelled out, it should be village of Sauk Village, that's the way it should be phrased. And
So,
it should be phrased.
but trustee, so-
This is just a simple change, okay?
Okay, I do want to say, in ordinances, we don't always say the village of Sauk. We just say, if you refer to it one time as the village of Sauk Village, then you refer to it as a village throughout the document. We don't really say that. So I use the same language, instead of saying the village of Sauk Village everywhere, you say the village. Like, people know what the village, well, we all know what the village means.
Everybody doesn't know what the village means. Now, we also mentioned the village fund balance policy, that's on page 8. We have a village fund balance policy.
So remember the $800,000 that we have in the bank right now, you know, the $800,000 we just talked about a little bit ago? Remember when we first got that $800,000, that's because we passed a policy, I think the previous board passed a policy, the cash reserve policy. Basically, it's the same thing, it's saying that, okay, these accounts should have X amount of dollars in them. And so what we did was, how we got the $800,000 number was, we said, okay, the water fund would not go below this amount, the sewer fund this amount, and all those accounts in total equal $800,000. That's how we came up with that number to set aside. So that's what that fund balance policy is, basically saying that we'll have money set aside for just in case.
So it's spelled out in another policy somewhere?
Right, so remember when I think a year or so ago, when we sold the land, we also set aside $800,000. But before we did that, we actually passed a cash reserve policy that says, this is why we're setting away this amount and, you know, and what it's for. So if you go back there, it should be in like a little, it should be at the front desk or in the front office. It should be somewhere around 19, 18 when we did that.
Okay, well, again, I'm going to look through the policy, but on page 10, in the middle of the page, it says the mayor or the village administrator shall be the final authority with regard to enforcement of any of the provisions of this policy. Now, that in itself, to me, is just overlooking the board of trustees' authority to do anything. Now, if we don't have a village administrator for some reason, and the mayor's there, the mayor has the final authority to do whatever, and the mayor's and this board of trustees who handles the purse string. So it seems like to me that
I'll add it for you.
huh?
I'll add it for you.
What?
I'll add the village, I'll add the board to this. I'll add the corporate authorities to this language.
Okay, well, then I'll send you the huge number of questions that, and also in this thing, it says, it should be all books, bank records and stuff should be held by the,
I don't know what page you're on.
time, be held by the treasurer and shall be available for inspection at any time. That's the Sauk Village Code, and that should be added. You know, I don't, you know, it's late, but I'll send you all my questions, but those are my concerns, that this particular document looks like it's geared toward having the mayor and the village administrator and the finance director control everything, but it's not, it's the authority of the board of trustees to hold the purse strings. There's too much involvement right now with people just moving money, money's missing, mismanagement, misappropriations we don't know about, but it should be the board of trustees that handles this sort of situation.
So trustee, so I understand your concern. Also, so this is policies and procedures.
I
So
understand.
also I want to say that trustees, they don't run the day-to-day operations. So like that's the mayor, that's the village administrator, and whoever else is here. So I'm not saying that the trustees don't control the purse strings, because they do. So, but this is more so enforcement of it. So they'll be entitled, they'll be held accountable to enforce this policy. But that doesn't take anything away from the trustee. That's what we currently do as far as moving the purse string. We still do that. We still have accounts payable, and we have to sign off on and approve every 2 weeks, and nothing changes.
Any more questions?
I'm just looking at this where it says 7,500 to 1999,
What page is it?
page 13, number 4, under F. Page 13, under F, number 4. It just seems like a big gap in the money for not having to have bids. 7,500 to about 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it just seems like a lot of money.
To not go off for a bid.
For no bidding, for a no bid contract, 20 grand, 1999.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like I could see 7,500, 10 grand.
So anything over 10 grand, you want to go off for a bid.
It should go out to bid. It's a village, everything should go out to bid.
Well, on number 3, it asks for 3 written quotes. But you get to number 4, it's just saying it's authorization required, so where's the quotes? I think you need to have an amount in there, like should we have 2 quotes, 3 quotes? I think with any of this, because several of them will say 3 verbal quotes. If it's only 2,500 to 4,999, 3 verbal quotes. But then when you get further down, the 1 doesn't have anything for a quote. I think you need a number in there.
Okay. I agree.
Written
That's
quotes.
one of my questions, because it seems like either verbal or written quotes are mentioned in 2, 3, and 5. 4 is the only one that doesn't have it in there. And I think using the word bid implies that we have to have a formal bid, but I think you meant to say quote. Yeah, just some type of written quote or verbal quote. Where do we need verbal quotes? Where do we need written quotes?
Okay.
And like in number 3, it says, is this saying that the department head can choose if there's quotes submitted? The department head can choose, does he stick with the lowest bid, or does he choose which bid he wants? And then move forward. You see on line number 3, it doesn't specify, it just that he can get 3 quotes. It said department, because I know he has to work within his budget. He or she knows he has to work within the budget. So are we asking that the lowest bid is always accepted, or are we giving the the department head the opportunity to choose?
So like, for example, back when we started having the budget, remember when Kevin went to go buy a piece of equipment, and we asked him to come back with some quotes? Well, actually, we just assumed that he would come back with the lowest quote. It was like $60,000. I think he did get 2 or 3 quotes, but he just chose the lowest based on, because it was the lowest quote.
Right.
So we would hope that they would always come out with the lowest quote and choose that. And not saying that you should go with the highest quote, because there's no point. We have a lower quote. So I can add that language if you want to, but it's assumed that you do get the lowest quote. Like, there's no reason for you to pick a quote higher than the lowest.
You would assume, I mean, unless there's a reason why the second highest quote gives you something just a little bit different than the lowest quote.
Mm-hmm.
My other question is, this refers to a PO system. We currently don't have a PO system, correct? So we couldn't even pass this policy until we put a PO system in place.
So PO system as far as, you know, right, I see what you're
An
saying.
official PO
Yeah,
system.
an official PO
Yes.
system, but I mean, just that, as we do business every day now, you purchase something, it's on accounts payable, we pay it. That's pretty much how it is.
But we need to consider purchase order policy or procedure
When,
before we can pass this one.
I wouldn't say before we can pass it, because I don't think we're there yet. I don't know when we'll be there, so I don't want to hold up a document saying, because who knows how long it takes before we get a purchase order system.
It's saying here that you need to have the prior to purchase order approval, so that means we should have a purchase order system. That's just my opinion. But I also wanted to mention in line 4, item F and H, I think we should all weigh into the dollar amounts that are mentioned on this policy, because I think they're a little high. I think that we need to revisit who gets what authority at what dollar amount. I'll personally be sending you my recommendations.
Okay.
Can I add two more, please, Roger? Roger, can I add two more? On page 36, it indicates that, on page 36, it refers to restricted fund balance. Now, it's my understanding that once we use the money that's budgeted for the year, that anything transferred outside of the budget, you know, that's in there, that it should be approved by the board. And I don't see that kind of language in there. You know, like say for instance, we budget for 5,000, but we need to come back and get something else. That should be brought before the board. No money should be transferred or anything without consent of the board.
Right, and that doesn't change.
Okay. And, okay, well, I guess it needs to be more explanatory. And also, we go back to the bid process. I forget what page that on, but a lot of times, and I looked at the prior ordinances that were put in there, that a lot of these things were where the bid process was waived because they wanted that particular piece of equipment because they thought they could get a better deal at it. But we should emphasize the waiving of the bid process and how that works.
Wait,
It's not included.
You want to get rid of the bid process?
Waiving the bid process. They have been waiving the bid process for a while.
Who is that?
We haven't done it lately because we haven't had any bids, but they have been waiving. I've looked up old ordinances where they have waived the bid process. I think that's something we need to add or look into.
That was like
This was
what Kevin
a
was
while
talking
ago.
about. They went to the bid service.
Yeah, take a look at it.
You want to get rid of it?
No, I said take a look at it.
Trustee, you're talking about when they brought that Bobcat and the grinder, and they went to that bid service.
Right.
Kevin said he knew that was the lowest way to go.
I understand that, but I said he might want to look at the way we look at bids now and the waiving of the bid process, because that's what happened before. They've been doing this for a while. If you look at some of the old ordinances, it says something about waiving the bid process, and I think that should be incorporated in the policy and procedures when we can waive a bid or not. No, I said this is something you should incorporate and look at. I think it'll be really important.
All right, and I think that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So I guess this is gonna be an ongoing process. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board of Trustees and Mr. Mayor, I would like to review the procedures for minutes that I thought that we had agreed on at the last committee meeting. And then when it was time to actually vote on them, there was just a little bit unrest. And know that I'm going to continue to work so that we can have an agreement that we can all flow through during the minutes, during our meetings, so that there's no consternation, there's no misunderstanding. Now, at the last board meeting, I thank you for approving the minutes with the added additions as requested. Then you asked, well, one of you asked that I put it in your mailbox by Friday. Another one of you asked that I email them to you. I'm sorry, I can't do two different processes, okay? This isn't a restaurant, and I'm not taking your orders, okay? It's, if you want it in your next packet, which would be that Friday, I have no problem with doing that, but I can't do one thing for you and then remember what you would want me to do, and I think that would be a little unfair. However, I made all of the corrections as requested, and they were in your packets on Friday. What I did in that packet there, yes. And the reason why you do not have all of the minutes that you approved was because some of them had no corrections that needed to be entertained. But if you go through the minutes where you see an underline, those were the changes that were asked to be made. And those will stay in the minutes. And as you go through the minutes, you're going to see that the changes are nominal. They're really not that major, but that's not to say that you don't have the right to ask me to make changes, but some of them you're going to have to look real close, because I think on one of them it's just one change and it's one word, okay? So do we all understand that process? Okay. When I came before you a couple weeks ago, I asked if I could present minutes to you at committee meeting. I have one set of minutes in there, and it is for November the 12th, that I know that I'll be presenting for approval at the upcoming board meeting. However, I really would like the flexibility that if I can push out one more set by Friday or Saturday, that I can email that to you. We really got to we have to get up to date. And right now, we're doing really good, but I just have to push a couple more out the door so that we're totally within the time frame. Is that okay? One, and hopefully one more. And thank you for bringing that up. It is time for us to review those minutes that we voted on, but voted to keep closed. So we would have to do that in executive board first, and then bring it to here. I really would like to do that next week as well, if at all possible, because we will be having an executive board. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on, and this one I'm going to talk I'm trying to talk quick.
Should I clarify something, or should I wait till you make that step? Should I clarify something about the minutes and the copy? Or should I wait till you finish?
I'm going to refer you to the mayor.
Are you talking about minutes?
Well, I'm talking about emailing and copies.
Okay, is it on the top of the first page?
It's something that she
Okay,
answered.
well then, yes, you can answer it now, yes. 'Cause you got-
Okay, with the minutes, it's fine, because it's only, maybe 5 pages at the most. But when we have a large document, like the one that Grant gave us, of course I want a hard copy because you have to write on it and stuff like that. I had, to make it clear, I love it email, but we're gonna need a hard copy as well too. Because we have to cross out their stuff. But I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying, but I also know what you said just last week.
I said.
What you said last week.
I'm already finished. I said to clarify what I'm saying, any large document like this, okay, I would love it to have a hard copy, because we have to write
Right.
But small.
I was getting ready to say the
Okay.
same thing, but I just need you to know, just last week, you did, in reference to sending you copies of something, a larger document, you says, oh no, I can make copies now, so no, that's fine.
No, I was talking about a large copy.
Okay. Okay, let's move on then. When it's sent to me electronically, I will send it to you electronically. If it's not sent to me electronically, then I will put it in, I'll do what I can, okay? That's, and I'm just gonna ask for your flexibility, because I have to be very flexible when and how I get documents as well.
Okay.
Moving on, Code Red, I was asked to give an update on Code Red, and I will get you that contract. I'm sorry, I didn't see it until today, okay? But where Code Red is concerned, we're basically ready to go. It's just, if our department heads refuse to take the training or refuse to report an emergency, then we have no Code Red. And or the other option is for them to call me, text me, send me the information, and then I can report it. I don't get the information, and believe me, and I want to just go on record to say I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, not at all. But if you want to know why you've not received the Code Red, is because nothing has been identified as a Code Red in this village up to this point, okay? United States Census, I was asked about that. We submitted a contract, not a contract, what did we submit? A grant. We submitted a grant for $25,000, and it's an outreach grant through Cook County. And I've not heard back from them yet, and we're just really looking forward to hearing back from them. We have a very ambitious plan that we are working on. And when I say we, I'm talking about the community partnerships. And there are 4 entities within the village who applied for grants. And so it's like we're intending that all 4 of us work together to accomplish what needs to be accomplished through our outreach, okay? So you're going to see a lot of activities coming up. And there's going to be some activities you're going to say, well, we never planned that, we never had that before. But what's really important is that we get people in the building, in our seats, to hear us with our spiel on the importance of conducting and responding to the United States Census questions. It's important that we get people in here so that we can assist them complete their documents online. We have all of this in place. If you would like, we have developed a monthly list of activities that we're doing at different schools and wherever relative to the census. If you want us to share that with you, we'll be more than happy to do that. But know that until after April, you're going to be hearing us census, okay? And some of the activities that we will be planning is designed for outreach so that we can bring our residents in, give them some of whatever else we're developing, but census is what we'll be sponsoring and paying for those activities. Okay? Did that answer all that you needed me to answer?
I have a question on Code Red. The reason why I brought it up was because I wasn't on the board at the time the Code Red came to fruition. I'm not exactly sure what constitutes a Code Red, but I thought boil orders were at least one of them, and I haven't seen a boil order come through, and I know we've had a few boil orders. But I do know your frustration that if it's not reported, it won't get sent out to the residents, which is my concern, again, is how much are we paying for this service, and is it worth the amount we're paying if it's not working? So that's why I need to see the contract. So maybe after we get a chance to review the contract, what we would like you to understand is that four of the people on this board were not part of the initial contract process, so we don't know what it involves. That's why I've been asking for the contract for such a long time.
I've not heard you ask me.
Oh, no, I've asked other people, and I finally came to you directly and said, because I would assume that they would have gone to you, but I have been asking for the contract, because I really don't know what it entails, 100%, and how much we're paying for it. And if it's a service that we're not using and don't plan on using in the future, then that's money we can save in the next budget. So that was the reason for my questions.
We came up with Code Red because we have a resident who suggested that we come up with some type of system so that we can communicate with our residents when there's an emergency. They talked about how important it was, so that's why we did the research. And other villages are doing it, and they're very successful with it because they have people who has made that a priority and that commitment. At some point in time, I think that we just have to impress upon all of our people the importance it is for us to meet the needs of our residents. So rather than just to throw it away, I think that we have to figure out how can it truly be implemented.
Okay. Next item, trustee Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first thing on the agenda was the ordinance amending the salary of the treasurer and the requirement for the surety bond. Now, you'll see there's no money amount there, and the reason I didn't do that is because I want your input on the money amount before I send it back to the attorneys, because that costs money.
What money amount?
The surety bond. So I talked to Mr. Finch, and he is suggesting $50,000. And the village pays for it. Of course, the more money that you want it to be, say you wanted it $1 million, costs a lot of money to have that surety bond. So he's recommending $50,000. So before I even send this back to the attorneys, I wanted to bring it back before you. And if you agree with $50,000, I will send it off to the attorneys to change that. Are you okay with $50,000? What about? Okay. And then the other two ordinances, this was brought up before, and I know there were concerns about it, and there was some of the suggestions, but the reason this is back in the packet, I wanted you to go through it because I had asked for emails at that time, and no one had emailed me, but there were concerns. So if you could just, if you have any concerns with these or suggestions or what you want to see in this ordinance, could you at least email me? With it, yeah, the freeze and the hiring freeze and the spending freeze. I mean, we're getting ready, we'll be doing a budget in the next couple of months. But if you have concerns, I mean, at that time, I know Trustee Grant, you had some suggestions or concerns, but I asked for an email and I never received it. So I'm bringing it back up because we don't want this to get by the wayside.
Yeah, so I mean, quickly on that, how do we plan on passing these two ordinances? Well, we do have one important position that's open that we need to fill as soon as possible, and another one as well that we budgeted for that we need to fill. I mean, that kind of.
No, well, what it is if it's already in the budget, you're not going to put a freeze on it. We already had, like, in that case, we had the finance director. Okay, that's already in our budget. This is outside the budget. But you can't just go in and hire someone that's not in our budget.
That's also for the fire department, or they're allowed to, they have 25 roster slots. So they're allowed to have up to 25 employees, right? Yeah, that's what, I was asking that by the fire chief.
Okay. So you're saying that you're not going to present these yet until you get some more figures, correct?
The one for the treasurer, we'll change that, the sum to
You
$50,000.
don't have nothing in here, so you're going to add them in there.
Right, I didn't put anything in there because I wanted to bring it before the board before I send it back to the attorney. Yes, the treasurer one, we put on for Tuesday's meeting to be voted on. The other two we're gonna hold on.
Yeah, so I mean, so I'm looking at it again, and so I don't see that language where it says if they're already budgeted for. I thought I remember saying that in the last ordinance maybe I did, maybe I didn't. This one doesn't say that. That's what.
And which is fine, and so that's why I'm coming back.
Okay.
Before you just say, okay, what do you want to see in this?
Okay.
All right. The next item, I'm not understanding tentative, so. What's up with this? Who asked for it to be put on?
That particular, the settlement agreement, and I talked to Mr. McGrath, he's supposed to bring back a copy for, I thought it was last week, but he didn't put it on. So I have no idea where it's at right now, so I have to call him and find out what's going on with that.
Oh, so you asked to have this put on?
Yes, it was last week that I had it put on. You know, it was supposed to be voted on last week. That's when I asked you for it, last week. Right. No, this doesn't have to be, this doesn't have to be in an executive session.
It does, if it's a.
But anyway, I don't know when it's gonna go back on, so I'll
If
just
it's a
let you
litigation,
know.
it has to be discussed.
Well, that's what Brad said, he didn't know he was doing something to it, so, you know,
Okay.
we have to get back with him on that one.
Next item, public comment. All questions, comments must be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any matter pertaining to the business of Sauk Village. Each speaker is allowed one opportunity to speak up to 3 minutes and may not engage in counter replies and votes. And I'll list all comments before item 5. Please state your name.
Judy Gassner. Quite some time ago, before the new trustees were voted in, there was a lot of talk about the expenditure of employees in the village that was an unnecessary amount of money. After they were voted in, there was a situation where staff was cut due to the amount of money that was being spent on them. There also, the HR lady went, Joe Wizzawati went. Joe Wizzawati, for the first time in history, that department had he needed somebody to help him out. That lady was, her position was taken away. Supposedly, she was supposed to go. But that didn't happen. Apparently there was some going back and forth and a decision made, and she was kept, and she's still with us. Well, everybody forgot the residents. She's got a new title, or supposedly a new title, but it looks like the same to all of us. We don't know what her real title is. What does her title encompass? And why is she involved in things that we feel that she shouldn't be involved in, such as housing? Why does the housing person not get the totals on how many empty houses there are in the village? It's not her only secret. The village itself wants to know how many empty homes we have. And yet we don't get it. And yet another thing was swept under the carpet. Don't tell the residents. And we're coming after you. We want our answers, and we are going to get our answers.
Pat Couch.
To make it quick, I'm just gonna read my concerns, and I don't know who put this list out for the finance department task list. I don't know who presented that, but it was on the table, so I have a couple of questions. First, Trustee Grant, I'd like to know how many meetings have you had recently with your committee? If not having meetings, when was your last, and who is on your committee? That's just a question that I'd like answered. Another one is about the fire hydrants. Who do we address about these fire hydrants? If they're not being replaced at this point in time, are they going to wait for the new budget before we get any new fire hydrants? On this list also it mentions the reconciliations of our bank accounts. To have over 300 bank accounts not reconciled is unheard of. That's unreal. I mean, I'm glad to see that they are getting that accomplished, but good Lord knows we need an employee that will take care of that. Thank you. Then another question. I believe I just heard the chief mention safety first in his comments that he was making. In this little report it says, what happened to the police vest grant? The response is the paperwork for the grant wasn't finalized and the village lost the funding for the vests. Who's responsible for losing that grant? Why aren't these employees watching what needs to be watched so we don't lose important grant money? That's a freebie we're giving away again. And the vendors, who's looking into these vendor contracts? I believe I heard something last week about a vendor check that the trustees had asked to be held and not pay that check.
1 minute.
And the payment was made to that vendor. I don't think we've still seen a contract. Did we have a contract? Are we going to get that parking lot fixed properly? Because it wasn't done properly the first time. And then the website revisions. Are we going to be able to get a website revision? Because there's a lot of stuff that on the website that is not proper, is not completed, is not updated. Why can't we get an update on our website? Thank you.
Frank Williams. When you're sitting up here talking about you guys, this village was founded on 6 trustees and a mayor. That's something don't you ever think about giving up. Because once you give that up, you don't have no authority to do nothing. Nothing at all. So my thing to you is this, don't give that up, please don't give it. If you want to do it, put it on a referendum, but don't sit here and let somebody make that change because it never works. The second thing is that I believe that as members of the board, that we can do better than what we do. I mean, to get these things that nobody knows what's going on in the state but certain people, that's not fair. Put you guys in place to find out about things. Second of all, you know good well enough. Your job is to run this village. That is your job. If it's not being done properly, do what you're supposed to do. If you was working on somebody else's job and wasn't doing it, they would get rid of it. So this is what you guys have to stand up and do. Second thing is that if you ask for something to be done by an employee, believe me when I tell you, that is your job. If there's some 6 of you, your job to make sure that that thing is done. Whether it's for the parking lot, whether it's sweeping the floors or cleaning the bathroom, if you want to know that, you are supposed to get an answer when you get that, ask for that thing. So that's what we have to get down to doing. So thank you.
Okay, I know talking, I've always said this about staff at an open meeting. I don't discuss personnel. So I don't know where that came from, but if you'd like to discuss that with me after the meeting is over with, why the person was cut or whatever, that part I would not discuss the person, how or why, even though someone says they were cut or whatever, I don't discuss that period. That's between the person and myself or HR or whatever, but I don't put people, especially if they're an employee or a former employee, I don't discuss employee relations in open board meetings. The department itself is community development, and yes, it does have something to do with housing. Always have, since I even became mayor, because I was trustee. Community development works directly with housing and with water shutoffs and things of that nature. It's always has been since I've gotten into elected official of the village. So for it not to be, I'm not. I don't understand why you would think that that's not the reason. It's not a separate entity. Community development is what it says. Community development, everything. Dealing with that, which is mainly be your housing and things of that nature. The questionnaire or the informal or formal question and answers that were put out there because I guess someone asked the questions and the answers were given on that. But I will tell you this, when it comes to different departments, the fire hydrants and things like that, they fall on the different departments. And if the department hasn't had a chance to get or address that, then that's what that is. It's not a fault. A lot of times it's Mother Nature that stops us from doing a lot of different things, which you'll find out, which you already know. As far as asking a trustee, excuse me, when they have their meetings, this trustee is here every week. I mean, and I'm sure you've been to the meetings, but if you need it in writing, who's on their committee, as all the trustees have committees, that can be provided. The trustees are here right now, so if you want to talk to that trustee after the board meeting, you can to find out who they are. If you need it in writing, I'm sure that they can give it to you in writing. Who is on each and every committee that trustee that has a committee. The VEST grant was dropped. The ball was dropped, I think, right after I became mayor, and it was supposed to have been taken care of by the police department at the time. And that's what happened to that, and that's why the grant wasn't moved on. We're trying to see if we can get it back, but as always, when you don't do something, they're reluctant to give it to you because they feel that you really didn't need to do it, but you didn't do whatever it is you had to do to make it happen. In the parking lot contract, I'm sure that is up in the, I don't have it on me, but I'm sure we can get a copy. So if a person wants to get a copy of the contract, we can do that. And the website is, right now, we're going back and forth with it. We're trying to get, and I've had a couple people that wanted to be administrators of it, but right now we have to make sure we have a website before we get an administrator. So that's first things first. We need to get the website up. The website has not been updated. As you stated, we've asked the person that does the update to do that, and right now, what we can do is continue to keep doing that, but if it doesn't happen, we got to take it away from that and go another route, because you're absolutely right. The website should be updated at least every month. At least. It was a trustee that asked about some of the things that were on that website that were updated, and we gave it to the person that does the updates, and I'm sure some of that has still not been done, so we have to continue, and if it gets to that point, we have to take it away and go a different route. That being said, trustee Grant, you have anything? Trustee Bell?
My committee's meeting is tomorrow at 1 o'clock, remember Rotunda? And I'm stuck on that website thing. The lady we talked to last week back there says she found out about the job on her website.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm just, well,
It's like,
the person said
just
there was
to
another.
give a hand here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on there. It's been on there for a while. Dallas has been on the website for quite a while, yes, they have.
Trustees put their hands up to give, to try to help us for no charge. And it just gets walked over. It's getting crazy, like the people said. We were put up there for a reason. We sure couldn't live because we're good with it. Thank you.
I have nothing.
You got it.
Okay. All right, here, so I can talk loud enough. Okay, just to give you a little information, according to the community development personnel, I just got information this morning, there are 338 empty houses. They had to go out and physically do a search. So they have a total of 338 vacant houses as of today. According to Public Works, I asked for a quarterly report because it's sort of difficult just updating one or two every month. So that quarterly report is due around January. I think because of the holidays and stuff, it's going to be a little late. So I had attended on reporting on it next week. I'm just waiting on information from Public Works to update the number of fire hydrants out of service, water main breaks, all that sort of stuff. But that report is coming. Public Works is on it. As far as the $943,000 that we were supposed to get for fire hydrant repair, we haven't got that money yet. We have no idea when we're going to get the money. When we get it, we'll start, rocking and rolling and fixing those fire hydrants. But right now, we don't have any money. We have a little money in the budget that we're going to spend on it, but the bulk of the money has not come from the state. So, with that being said, that's the end of my report. Keep in the money.
Oh, I'm sorry, trustee.
That's okay.
Trustee Ty, yes, go ahead.
Okay, the only thing, I just have a comment when it comes to that website. I heard you state that you gave that list. Is that the list that the trustee put together that's outdated? The list that,
Yes,
so you've given it to an
Yes.
individual?
I gave it to the person that was supposed to be doing it.
Because if that person doesn't do it, again, our trustee has offered to do it. She's offered to have a committee. I do not have a problem going onto that committee to get it updated when we could do it for free. Because we can't really bring anybody in to redesign our website because it's so out of date. So I think that's something, because it's been a couple of years, so I rely on it for like ordinances. Sometimes instead of coming in here, I can look on the website. Well, it hasn't been done since 2018. So, no. Okay, because if it's not laid out the same way, I'm not sure where I'm looking, but I mean, that's just my opinion. I say let's get it up and done, and if the person is not going to do it, then we've got to figure out how we get it updated for free. And that ends my comment.
Trustee Williams.
First question is, what I forgot to ask Trustee Grant was, did you have a meeting and go over with this policy with your budget and finance committee? You did, so they have reviewed it as well. Okay. Second of all, and my final thing, I finally got a copy of the Sauk contract, which was for the website. I just got it today, otherwise I would have shared it. Just so there's an understanding, SOCS or FES, whichever you want to call it, was only paid to take our web hosting away from what we currently have. So we paid $2,400 for something that never happened. It had nothing to do with redesigning the website. That would have been at an additional cost, which is listed in this contract. So what bothered me from the very beginning, when we first found out, because I've been asking to redesign the website for over 2 years, What bothered me from the very beginning was that we actually paid out, and it is $2,400. Last week I was interrupted during my report where it was stated it was $1,600. I have a contract, you're welcome to have it. But what bothers me most is I'm hearing conflicting things. I heard from the mayor that we do not have a website. Now I'm hearing we have a person that he passed on the information to. I guarantee you, I will have that website updated by Friday. I already know what needs to be done. I've already put the 31 items on the back of the table that I did a cursory glance over the website that what needs to be done. So I don't know who it got passed on to, but I've been asking to do it for a long time, and like they said, free. So Mr. Mayor, I don't know why you say we don't have a website. We do. It's up and running, but it's outdated. There's so much information out there that's outdated. Our new staff members aren't on there. Our old staff members are. Our old committees are on there, but our new committees are not. I had someone email me the other day for a staff member's email because they're not even listed on the website. I don't know who is handling the website. You said you passed it off to somebody else, but I am offering once again to do it, and I will give it my full attention because it looks ridiculous, and it's the first thing that people are supposed to do when they want to research our village is go to our website. Social media should not be the place to go to get information about your community. It should be your website. Thank you.
First of all, if I need capital funding grant that we're supposed to get from the state was $936,000. Of that, $500,000 was allocated for fire, not the whole 900. The other money was allocated for infrastructure repairs. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I have talked to our legislators, and the last thing I found, I've gotten is that they're trying to go off of bonds to fund the entire thing, $22 million throughout the state. They have to go off the bond funding, they take a bond out. Once that happens, then they can start distributing the money throughout. And the last time I heard, it was 10 years ago, the last time they got this funding, and a lot of municipalities, probably the majority of them, got less than 50% of what was handed out. So that part, I mean, it sounds good, but realistically, I mean, we haven't gotten it yet, so that's why we haven't even tried to do anything with that money, because the way that money is handled is you have to actually show them that you paid for it and they reimburse you for whatever services that you do under that particular grant. Next thing, and I am it's just a shame, and I'm not here every day, and don't come in here and didn't become mayor every single day to be made a, whatever you want to call it, like I said last week, a show like here, and we can put on a movie, whatever. I'm here every day, and if you have a problem, that's anybody, trustees included. My office door is open, I don't keep mine closed. And if you need to ask and talk about some things, and I even asked, if you need to talk about something, let's talk about it. But to tell me that I will not talk to you because you argue too much, to tell me that I'm not going to do A, B, and C, well, I'm going to continue. If you want to leave, if you would like to leave, but you said what you have to say. You're not going to tell me, get up and leave. Thank you. Bye. Goodbye. No, it does. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you.
Take my show
It must
to the
hurt.
HBO.
It must
See you, Mr. Mayor.
be, it must
See ya.
be. It must be part, there you go. But for that to happen, and I'm here every
Fix the
single
website,
day.
Mr. Mayor.
I thought you were gone. I thought you were gone.
Fix
But
the
that to
website.
happen each and
Fix the
every week,
website.
every week, then that's what you have to do. And that's what you have to do. But I'm not gonna sit here and let a person tell me I can't talk to you. And all you have to do is come in my office and let's go over some of these things. But don't write me a letter, an email, and say, oh, be here, and I walk past you, and you don't even say anything to me. Yes, I have a problem. And that's the only thing I'm saying. I'm here every day.
Shut the door.
I'm just saying. I just want to, because it's getting boring, and I'm here. All you have to do is come, every other trustee has to call me, come in and say, hey, man, can I get 5 minutes of your time? That's all I say. That being said, I'll ask the motion to adjourn. Moved by trustee Bill, second by trustee Tyler.